All right, welcome back to Under the Influence, the wild ride of Joe Nacchio. Taking a look at something a little more believable here, this is a man that became under the influence of his own power and success. We as humans accept that influence. We accept being under the influence of a substance, but we don't accept often enough being under the influence of another person, because this also happens. Our minds are hijacked, crimes are committed, awful things can happen. But in order to bring us home and bring us back to the accepting idea of being under the influence in the first place, we're looking at Joe Nacchio. Like celebrities and like anyone that suddenly can become successful, or even if it happens over time, the success itself changes the person. And when that happens, we are right there ready to believe that, yeah, this person became nasty. Yes, this is really them acting this way. We don't have a problem believing it happened. And it definitely happened to Joe Nacchio. This was a guy who thought he could outsmart the entire system and ride the wave of success forever. As the CEO of Qwest Communications, he was on his way. If you didn't listen to episode 1 here of Under the Influence, Joe Nacchio, go back and listen to it because it will set the scene for everything we're going to talk about here and in part 3. In part 2 here, we're going to dive into that moment where everything just really started falling apart for Joe Nacchio, where the desperation kicked in, and where Nacchio's grip on reality slipped away. So let's get into it. All right, by the year 2000, the telecom bubble was showing signs of deflating. It got really big for a while, but as cell phones and other things started to take regular phones' places, the Qwest Communications success track it was on started to slow down. And Nacchio was right in the thick of it. The dot-com boom had propelled Qwest into stardom, basically. But it was now starting to crumble. The stock market, where it was shining, was now becoming unstable. And like I said, telecom companies in general, they were scrambling to adjust because technology was taking over. Now, despite this, Joe Nacchio, he continued his ways. He continued to act like everything was just fine. Publicly, he remained the confident CEO, speaking boldly about Qwest's future and its place in the rapidly changing industry. However, privately, everything was a completely different story. Inside the company, there were growing concerns. Employees were whispering about unrealistic financial targets and creating accounting practices that seemed to, they were designed to keep Qwest's stock price artificially high. And so when you are designing things to just maintain something that the company can't really maintain, this is when problems start. The pressure to perform was immense, and the fear of failure was tangible. But Nacchio, he kept pushing harder. He was completely driven by his total obsession with maintaining his wealth and his status. This guy's entire identity was tied to his image as this successful CEO, and he was not about to let that slip away without a fight. So, as you can see in this process of falling under the influence, it's fear that he is creating in others to help maintain his own status. And it's also his own fear of losing something that was really never his to begin with that is keeping him here and now giving him the permission, basically, in his own mind to lie to the public, to deceive investors, because in his mind, he has to do this. Now, the Joe Nacchio that started out, that maybe wanted to become this successful guy, probably never dreamed of lying to investors. This is how it starts. The influence of wealth and power. So let's take a closer look at what was really going on. This guy was a man under the influence of his own ambition and the intoxicating power that came with it. He had been on a meteoric rise for years. And that guy that started out, well, that guy was way back there. Now, Joe Nacchio was faced with the reality that the bubble that he was in could burst. But rather than pull back and do the right thing, this guy doubles down. He starts selling off millions in Qwest stock, while he's still telling the public and all of his investors that everything is fine. His reasoning? Well, it's pretty simple. He had to protect himself, to secure his own wealth in case, things went south. But he also believed that he could turn things around if he could just buy more time. So here he is now, desperate and fearful. And then now he's falling under his own delusion that no, the telecom world is not changing, that he can save the day. To understand Nacchio's mindset, consider the environment he was operating in, because it was a unique time. The corporate culture at Qwest was built around aggressive growth. It was built around risk-taking and bending the rules to get ahead. Employees were all rewarded for results, no matter how they got them. Nacchio cultivated a team of ambitious executives who were willing to push that envelope, and he himself was no stranger to taking risks. But now at this point, the stakes are higher than ever. His very livelihood, the life that he has now created, his family, everything, it depended on keeping up appearances, and he was determined to maintain his tight grip on his power. Now, meanwhile, the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, began to notice some strange patterns in Qwest stock transactions. Nacchio's massive stock sell-offs, which totaled over $100 million in just a few months. This all caught their attention. I mean, why would a CEO sell so much stock if his company was as healthy as he was claiming? The timing was just too perfect. The SEC started to dig deeper, and they end up launching an official investigation into Qwest Communications' financial practices. As the investigation unfolded, more alarming details emerged. The SEC found evidence that Qwest had inflated its revenues by billions of dollars. Billions. Using shady accounting methods to make it look like the company was growing a lot faster than it actually was. It was a classic case of corporate manipulation. And Nacchio, he was right there in the center of it. This guy had known for months, if not years, that Qwest was not performing as well as he had led his investors to believe. And yet, he continued to sell his stock at inflated prices while he cashed in. And his investors, he's leaving them to hold the bag. Again, do we feel like Joe Nacchio started out with these intentions? No. He got greedy, falling under his own influence of his own success. And now he's willing to do a lot more illegal activity and anything he can to maintain that image. Now, back inside Qwest, the atmosphere is becoming increasingly tense. Nacchio, once seen as a confident and charismatic leader, he was now starting to look a little paranoid and a bit erratic. He began isolating himself from his closest advisors, and he was starting to fire anyone who dared to question his decisions or raise any concerns about the company's future. Employees reported that he had become more secretive, holding closed-door meetings and making decisions without even consulting his senior team. This is pure desperation, secrecy. He's under his own delusion. The pressure was mounting, and Nacchio's behavior became more desperate. He became